And so that becomes a very potent space for us. Now, some of us don't like government. We're like, oh, well, whatever. But it is the space of our greatest good and our public group thing. And we need to do that. So Martin Luther King said we must rapidly begin to shift. And that's where the shifting is coming from. In April the 4th, 1967, he was speaking about the Vietnam War. And he says that this rapid beginning of a shift, he made it an imperative. We must. He didn't say maybe possibly, maybe if you think about it, maybe if we get some analysis and some academics write some excellent policy papers, maybe if some students show up McGill with some nice cafe latte and we had a nice panel discussion, then we might decide to do it. He said we must rapidly begin to shift from a thing-oriented society to a person-oriented society. When machines and computers and profit motives and property rights are considered more important than people, the giant triplets of racism, materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered. That's what we're confronting with McGill. This triplets. We're all consumers. We have to return back to our humanity. And so how do we do it? What's the Just Transition campaign? Resistance. Everyone repeat after me. Resistance.
Resistance.
Resilience.
Resilience.
Restoration.
Restoration.
And reimagining.
Reimagining.
We call it the big 4 R's because this is the framework of the Just Transition campaign in the United States of America, which we're hoping to connect globally and kind of show up in Montreal with it. And hopefully Climate Justice Montreal will help us kind of root it in Canada. Resistance is movement building for power. Resilience is to survive and thrive through ecological transition. Restoration is to returning back to the web of life what has been forced by greedy people, sociopaths and a few psychopaths, to the chain of the market, and to allow for our planetary systems to heal. We know the earth has wisdom, right? If you let stuff go, it doesn't go like wild, it goes to its balance. Ecosystems are living, they're evolutionary. And reimagine is to weave an irresistible, transformative narrative of how we can do it. So who's in here a journalist? Who in here writes? Besides Martin and a few. You guys are charged with writing a narrative, an irresistible narrative. That when people hear it, they're like, I want to connect with that. I want to live that. I want to have that. So this is the model on how we nest it all together. And words are nice, but if you're left brain and right brain, we like to massage both sides of the brain. This, inside of the inner circle, is restoring our labor. We got to get off the treadmill. Corporate giants should not, like, the scale of our work and labor has to be restored. We have to foster our resilience. We have to resist our right to do what's right. And we have to reimagine a world of many worlds. That's our diversity. We have to develop tolerance, Montreal. We have to love the tension of diversity. So restoring our labor to meet our needs, somebody has to start growing food. And we're going to have to start doing it locally and regionally. And Montreal has to go local. And I would love to see Montreal, as I'm trying to shift Detroit's consumption to 25% local and regional. That's a lot of money and a lot of jobs, but that's also eating in place. A low carbon footprint, a shorter supply chain, and you know your neighbor. We have to foster our resilience and our ability to rebound when necessary, to reorganize in the face of disruptive change. Is going to depend upon our resilience. And we have to become elastic. We're going to have to resist and fight for some rights. Harper must be confronted. Obama must be confronted. We are the people and they derive their power from us. And we have a say and we have standing agency in your voice. And if you're afraid to go to an elected servant and says, this is what we demand, you've already defeated. There is a raw milk crisis. People are policing stuff. People are taking back lands. They're squatting. They're affirming themselves in human dignity. And that's worth something. And all to the end to reimagine a path towards many worlds. This young man is giving us some heirloom seeds, non-GMO. And he's saying here, he wants to share. That is the mindset and the mind state of sharing, of caring, is critical. So in Detroit, this is what we're learning. We're trying to learn how to avoid gentrification, which prices poor people out of markets, and we're also trying to learn contesting for power, and we're trying to create a closed loop economic order. And I'm going to touch on that. So energy and food and water should all be decentralized. No more mega anything. If you're too big to fail, then you're too doggone big. You need to break it down. You need to stop what you're doing. You need to rethink a human scale, a city scale, a neighborhood scale capacity, and not try to serve, you know, all continents, all people, and feed 1.5 billion people. We need diversity of our food. We need diversity of our lives. We need redundant energy systems. We need solar, geothermal. We need all of that. And we also need to restore the web of life. That diversity is our elasticity, really. If you're resilient only because you got a big toolkit, you know how to deal. And we need to democratize. The corporate fascism and these like mega corporate trade pacts, the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, Canada, don't do it, please. Say no to the TPP. Say no to all the Atlantic Trade Pact. Those are written by corporate behemoths, meant to secure their supply chain and meant to secure profits. In other words, we got to dampen down and redistribute. This is Ngolo Sioux territory. They had all these trucks rerouted through their territories and it actually set in the road. Imagine that. You're going to defend the earth, you're defending your homeland, you're defending your way of life, and you got to shut down industry. That's not for everyone, but for First Nations and people that are indigenous on the land, this is critical. So I would like to ask for all of you to stand in solidarity with First Nations wherever they're at in the world in protecting ecosystems and the environment. So this is what we would like to see. We would like to see cities that run on the sun. Could y'all imagine if Montreal was 50% solar powered and had some wind turbines that also carry some levels of the redundancy of the load and had geothermal wells? What does that mean for fracking and for natural gas? We would like to see cities that know how to grow. We would like to see cities that go with the flow. We would like to see cities that move in mass of transit. We would like to see cities that work together. And we call it from hoarding to sharing, from jobs to roads, from community economics where our work is good for us, good for our communities, and good for the planet. Cooperatives, small scale mom and pop, and triple bottom line economic institutions. And we also would like to see cities that know where they are in relationship to ecosystems. Where is our ecological allegiance? Where are we at? What's our watershed? What is the watershed here in Toronto? Montreal. Y'all don't figure out what's the watersheds around here and start calling the watersheds. I don't say I'm from Detroit, I say I'm from the Lake Erie watershed. People are like, well, where is that? In the middle of Lake Erie? I'm like, no, I'm in one of the tributaries that flow into the Lake Erie. Well, where is that? Well, they call the city Detroit because my allegiance is to Lake Erie. Cities where people set roots. Everybody should have place. Everyone should have home. Cities that are all called home. So this is Havana, Cuba. And they have this notion where everyone has to live well and nobody should live better. Imagine that as public policy. You don't get to have a mega multi-billionaire and half of us barely have housing. It's not good for the public space. So this is Detroit's story. It's a mound building spot. We have a lot of urban ag. It's a trade spot. It's majority African Americans. It is in poverty. We have profound issues of quality of life. Our assets and grassroots brilliance is through the roof. And our current economic crisis is we're in bankruptcy. So we've been taken over by the state and we're an urban plantation. The quality, so this is Windsor. I love this shot. I say hi to our neighbors in Ontario and Windsor. But this is the Freedom Monument in Detroit because Detroit and Windsor has a very unique history. Not as a